Yo, what up, a-holes? Thank you for tuning into the Holistic A-Hole podcast. My name is Eric Levi, and I'm the Holistic A-Hole, the mommy blogger with balls, the inconvenient truth of health, and a certified holistic nutritional therapy practitioner. Yes, what's going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great day or evening, or maybe this is the first thing you're listening to right out the gate in the morning. Maybe you're sitting in traffic and you're cursing out the cars around you, and then you turn on my sweet, calming, aggressive voice, and all is good in your world. Whatever you're doing, hope you're having a great one. I'm having a great day. I'm having just a great month. I mean, just a little side note here. I don't mean to do this like Instagram influencer, how great my life is thing, but holy cow, I love living in Puerto Rico. I love living in Puerto Rico. Right now, I live in an Airbnb for just another couple weeks, and then I'll have my own place on the beach, which is just bonkers. But even this shitty little Airbnb where I'm swatting fruit flies and obese mosquitoes, for reference on that, listen to the previous Holistic A-Hole podcast. But I'm literally a 5-minute walk to the beach, and it's just an unbelievable luxury, I guess is the word, to just, take like these little afternoon walks or morning walks and just walk to the most beautiful beach I've ever been to in my life here in Puerto Rico. And it's just, it's right here next to the city. Anybody can do this. Anybody can live here. It's incredibly affordable. Granted, there are some inconveniences, some expensive things, because this island is, I believe it's a commonwealth. It's a territory. It's the way I see it is it's pretty much the United States little bitch. But Puerto Rico, man, is the island. The whole island is beautiful. I haven't even explored any of the island. I just seen pictures. I know that as you get a little bit more into the raw territory, it's unbelievable. But just the city beaches, man, just walking down Ashford Avenue and then cutting down the block, and you're at Parque Beach. You're at Condado Beach. You're at Ocean Park Beach. And we're talking about the whitest, softest sand, the bluest water. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I go in that motherfucker a couple times a day. I'm just sitting out at like 6:30 watching incredible sunsets, and it's like I feel it. It's weird, feeling the body just get doused with so much sun and vitamin D, and then going in the water and experiencing the energy you get from the water and the iodine and the natural sodium, and then grounding on the beach itself. It's I can't even. So I'm feeling pretty good. That being said, I'm going to go into some topics here that don't got me feeling good. Before I do, first thing I want to say is, look, if you're new here to the Holistic A-Hole podcast, make sure you take a second, hit the subscribe button. I got people listening who aren't subscribed. Subscribe. You're going to love this podcast. It's going to pop up in your news feed every Tuesday or Wednesday, sometimes twice a week, and you want to be able to catch it when it comes. And if you do love the podcast, if you enjoy what you're listening to, head on over to iTunes, leave the podcast a nice 5-star review. Follow the Holistic A-Hole on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all Holistic A-Hole. You can listen to the podcast, take a screenshot of it in your phone, put it on your Instagram story, tag me, the Holistic A-Hole, say what you love, what you hate, whatever it is you're feeling, whatever your raw emotions are, throw it in there. Just throw it in there, and I'll be happy to respond. And if you're like, where do I get more Holistic A-Hole? Well, you can go to holisticahole.com. You can go to the Bro Health Facebook group. You can go to the Holistic A-Holes Facebook group. You can do all of that. You're going to find the Holistic A-Hole content there. Go also to the Holistic A-Hole YouTube page. Subscribe there, because now I'm getting back into posting videos. I got a real long video that I'm posting today. Hopefully it'll be up by the time this podcast is out. If not, you can just go back to YouTube. It's always going to be there. But this video is basically me detailing the back and forth between Impossible Foods, maker of the Impossible Burger, and their response to a letter written by moms across America, pretty much calling out Impossible Foods for their use of ingredients that include excessive amounts of the herbicide glyphosate. and things get kind of hairy. I break it down with the science, with the studies, with my own opinions, and it's just a fun video to watch. Not to mention I got new Ben Greenfield videos, I got new vegan Trump supporter videos coming out, and then I got a few newbies that are going to be out there. So if you haven't done this, subscribe to the Holistic A-Hole YouTube channel. So first thing out of the gate I want to talk about this week is my good boy Donald J. Trump. I love Trump. Am I a Trump supporter? I guess I support Trump. I don't hate him. I don't agree with everything he does. For example, this whole Iran and Venezuela thing. Like, I really don't think we should be going to two more enormous wars when our military is completely strained beyond belief. I think there's a lot of problems here at home. I think there's a lot of promises that he made that he hasn't kept. I think the border is a disgrace, and I think on that front, Trump's trying to do what he can, but it's a problem. But I think take the shackles off, take this Russia bullshit out of the equation. I think he's the best. I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I like Trump. I can't really. I don't want to go too far into the politics thing, but what I do want to talk about is his recent interview he did with George Stephanopoulos, which lit Twitter on fire. And I'm not a big Twitter guy, but of course, that's kind of how we gauge news now, what's trending. And I hadn't seen this interview, and then I watched it the other day. And of course, I thought it was fun. I thought it was a fun interview. I thought it was, of course, interesting to see what inside Air Force One looks like. The fact that you get an inside view, as inside as you could get on a mainstream media network of the inner workings of the White House. The fact that Trump only sleeps 4 to 5 hours a day. The dude is a machine, and he just turned 73 years old. And I would say, kind of looking at all things considered, Trump doesn't follow any, I would say, holistic A-hole principles. You hear about the dude eating McDonald's and drinking Diet Cokes, loves a good burrito bowl. None of that of which I would say, hey, Trump, this is a good thing. I bet if Trump is a client, I could get him down probably 20 to 40 pounds. And probably, maybe thinking a little clear, maybe he's got some brain fog going on. But the guy's a freaking machine, especially when you compare him to other politicians that are out there that are just falling apart at the seams. Nancy Pelosi, Jerry Nadler. Jerry Nadler is like nodding off in the middle of, congressional hearings. Nancy Pelosi sounds like she's hammered all the time. Chuck Schumer not doing well. I've heard that there's like a pharmacy in like the Maryland, kind of close to DC area that it's the pharmacy for all the politicians. And they're just dishing out insane amounts of, prescriptions because of course, look how old a lot of these politicians are, man. They're not doing good, especially with all that stress from all that illegal bullshit they're doing. It's gotta be pretty amazing. But Trump is a machine, dude. He's on the plane. He's flying from here to there. He's got the whole mainstream media against him. He's answering the hard questions. And Stephanopoulos, I think this was in the part 2 of the interview. Trump wakes up, comes downstairs. He's talking about this is my day. This is my routine. I wake up and Stephanopoulos is like, did you get a good night's sleep? He's like, I only need 4 to 5 hours of sleep. Which I think's amazing. I get 5 hours of sleep. I feel like asshole the whole day, let alone being able to get on a plane, fly across the country, to Iowa, do a rally, go down to Arizona, talk about the border, keep up with all the news about me, talk about things with other politicians, and then fly all the way back to Washington, D.C. I'd be a complete wreck. I have a hard enough time just walking to the beach after 5 hours of sleep. But what got me here in the interview was Stephanopoulos was like, so what'd you have for president? Trump, he's like, I don't do breakfast. I go straight to lunch and dinner. I have a fantastic lunch, an incredible dinner, the best chefs in the world, the best chefs you're ever going to see. I don't have a good breakfast chef, so I don't do breakfast. Trump doesn't do breakfast, and I think he said, I've never done breakfast. That's unbelievable. So Trump kind of sort of intermittent fasts. Isn't that crazy? Because as you know, I've mentioned this a couple times on this podcast. I did an episode about it back in March, that I'm starting to, second guess fasting. There was about a year and a half period where I was doing, at least 4 or 5 intermittent fasts a week. I was doing, 24-hour fasts. I did a 7-day fast. But I think a year ago, this week actually, was when I did my 7-day fast. And for me, I decided after that fast, I probably won't ever do that again, especially now that, I'm reading more of this literature. And yeah, there's a lot of great literature on fasting, but, there's even more literature about really the harm that you can do to yourself by doing excessive amounts of fat, especially for women. This could be a problem with your hormones. If your body's not detoxifying properly, if your body's not set up to phase 2 detoxify, fasting is not a good idea. Even intermittent fasting, not a good idea, especially if you're dealing with blood sugar issues, which so many people are, especially so many women are, because again, you're the estrogen, the hormones, it all works together with the adrenal glands, the sugar, the copper, the liver. If the shit's not working right, which again, for most people it's not, fasting's not a good thing. Yeah, you'll lose weight, and people associate that with, well, now I'm healthier, but that's not a good way to you could be deficient in very important nutrients that you need to get through, extra calories throughout the day, 3 meals a day, 3 whole food, good quality meals a day. So I'm not the biggest proponent of fasting or intermittent fasting, but holy cow, President Trump, no breakfast, goes straight to lunch. So if he eats dinner at like 6 or 7, goes straight to lunch or at noon, that's like somewhere between a 14 and 16-hour fasting window. Dude is intermittent fasting. Dude at 73 years old is more productive than anybody I've ever seen, really. He's starting to get into the realm of like Tom Brady pulling off, these accomplishments at an old age, and Trump is sharp as a nail. Trump is sharp. Like him or hate him, you can't help the fact that, dude, he is schooling people on social media as a 73-year-old. I look at my own parents in their late 60s. They can't keep up. My dad, he's got the iPad, but he knows how to swipe and how to scroll through stuff, how to watch videos, but he can't work hashtags on Twitter. He can't rile up people on Twitter. I don't know any 70-year-old that's as sharp with the nicknames, with the rhetoric, with the bullshit, hey, love him or hate him, with the lying. You know how quick and sharp you have to be able to lie and fabricate, the stuff you're doing, to remember people's names and to congratulate them on stuff, to just stand in front of an arena of people and hold their captive attention while saying whatever you're saying, make it make sense for a room of 18,000 people. That's unbelievable. And that's, we're talking about like a Trump rally. We're talking about the end of a full day of presidential work where, we're talking about bombings in the Iranian Sea. We're talking about, possible invasions of Venezuela. We're talking about 7 other wars still going on. We're talking about a crisis at the southern border. We're talking about, just regular day-to-day stuff of running the country. And this dude's 73 years old. No breakfast. I don't do breakfast. I go straight to lunch. Breakfast for bad people. Nervous Nancy, she eats breakfast. Look at her. Look at crying Chuck. He eats breakfast. Look at the fake news, CNN, MSNBC, Rachel Maddow eats breakfast. All the terrible, terrible people eat breakfast. No one in my cabinet eats breakfast. That's why we're doing a great job. We're doing a fantastic job. That's why the wall's going to get built. No breakfast, Trump. I love it. I'll tell you this. I think it's convinced me to try to get back into this intermittent fasting thing. I think that's your data right there. I don't need rat or mouse animal models of testing. I just need to see the most the most cyborg human we have, the most untouchable, bulletproof person in the world. 73 years old, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, intermittent faster. Unbelievable. Okay, let's go on to the next thing here that I wanted to talk about, and that is Verizon. We're talking about Trump here. We're talking about Twitter. But like I said, I've never really been the biggest tweeter in the world, and now I'm getting onto Twitter. It's just that I feel like it's the front page of the news. I know people. Reddit is a little too much for me. Like I don't know Reddit. I'm not in that community. I'm sure like the real like front page of the internet is Reddit, is what they call that. But Twitter is the thing that, I mean, when we're talking about news, when we're talking about the goings on of the day, what are people talking about? What is the most, insignificant shit that people make very important? It's Twitter. So I've decided to go on and just, I don't like Facebook anymore. Instagram, I love Instagram, but it's a lot of work, to take pictures and do all that stuff. But Twitter is just so easy just to scroll through. And, I start scrolling through Twitter and I see Verizon come up. And I didn't know I'm not following Verizon. It's just they have these sponsored ads. And you would imagine they do have the ability to get in my feed through advertising because they're Verizon. They make a lot of money, so they know how to do this shit. But what caught my eyes is it seems like in the last week especially, I don't know how long this has been going on, but it looks like Verizon is really doing a full court press into pushing a narrative of how important 5G is, specifically for doctors and hospitals that are involved in cancer treatment. There's all of these, tweets that I've been seeing coming through and these videos where they're talking about, like cancer survivors or people who've lost somebody to cancer, and they're like, they're basically saying like our 5G wireless technology is going to give doctors the ability to use these computers and these tablets, these like computer tablets like iPads that transmit information so fast that doctors will now be able to better diagnose people with cancer. Let me find a good one here now. Here's one that came out on June 13th. It says, turning 2D medical imaging into 3D will change how cancer is visualized. Find out how Verizon #5G ultra wideband will help give doctors greater precision to change lives. That's one of them. Let's see if I can find another one here. I'm just scrolling through there. To the Verizon Twitter, and it's so slow, but they have all of these tweets, with these videos talking about how here's one from Good Morning America. Turning 2D medical imaging into 3D will change how cancer is visualized. We take a look at how Verizon 5G technology will help transform the field of medicine by improving surgical precision. That was on Good Morning America. Of course, the mainstream media is going to stroke the federal transmit. What is it called? The FTIC or whatever it is. The federal telecommunications people, the FTC. Of course, they're going to stroke the FTC's fucking ego and push their bullshit. And it's ironic because there's seems to be a lot more steam gaining in the opposite direction of the benefits of something like 5G. I remember 5G even just a year ago, it was very much a fringe topic. And I only heard about it because I was listening to a lot of Alex Jones, and he was talking about 5G's the birds are dying, 5G's killing the birds, 5G's, they're gonna put it in your neighborhood, your baby's gonna have 3 eyeballs, frogs are gonna be humping each other and they're gonna be gay. 5G's making the frogs gay. And that's not a slant on Alex. In fact, big Alex Jones supporter right here. Although I can't find him anymore because he's been lifted off of all the platforms. But now it's becoming more and more. I don't know if people are just, catching on, or if there's a lot more, Alex Jonesy type people out there getting this information about 5G, but there seems to be more and more of a backlash, especially in my community of, natural practitioners who are very skeptical about what 5G is going to do, and it is ironic. I mean, directly ironic that Verizon is saying that their equipment is going to help cancer. They don't say it's going to help prevent cancer. They say, well, it's going to help us detect cancer. Well, what are the odds that you create a technology that could very well give people more cancer? Well, at least it's going to help us find that cancer. It's going to help us find that cancer that might not have existed had it not been for the technology that finds it in the first place. If you want more information on 5G, I do have an article on my blog, holisticahole.com, the 16 reasons why 5G radiation is dangerous. And I go through, a bunch of these, scientifically backed reasons. I think the biggest one that kind of applies to this is there's never been a long-term study done on the safety of wireless technology. Not even just 5G, but 4G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. The standard absorption rate, which is basically your body's ability to absorb microwave irradiation and radio frequency radiation, has not been updated since 1996. There's no clinical trials proving that any of this stuff is safe. In fact, there's a lot of data that shows that it might not be safe. There's been a lot of cover-ups amongst the Cellular Telecommunications and Internet Association to the point where the chief scientist of the CTIA has come out and said the risk of rare neuroepithelial tumors on the outside of the brain was more than doubled in cell phone users. There was an apparent correlation between brain tumors occurring on the right side of the head and the use of the phone on the right side of the head, and the ability of radiation from a phone's antenna to cause functional genetic damage was definitely positive. And the best part about that was written in 1999. Do you remember cell phone technology in 1999? It was like, it was like the difference between a lizard and a goddamn Tesla, right? It's the difference between a little old lady crossing the street and a Tesla blasting through a stoplight. I mean, this is the difference in what technology was. Think about the amount of Bluetooth you see people walking around with. Right? You think about the amount of Wi-Fi that's just everywhere. Think about the power of your phone to use those technologies and to pull up the internet in really any situation. We don't know what the long-term consequences of these technologies are, because it's just not being studied, right? As a holistic a-hole, yes, I'm very into the nutritional literature. But everything kind of goes out the window when you start saying, well, what about the cell phone technology that's going on? Who knows? Who knows, right? Who knows if it's the nutrition or if it's the 5G or 4G waves, right? Who knows if it's the Bluetooth or the fried food? Maybe it's both. So this is why I'm such a big proponent of these, holistic a-hole diets, because you have to strengthen the power of your cells. You have to. I really believe that. There's studies that show that the mitochondria is the canary in the coal mine of longevity. Right, the strength of your mitochondria, the strength of your cellular walls, the strength of the interstitial fluid in the cells, the strength of your liver's ability to detoxify your body, the ability for just your whole body to work right. It hinges. There's no bigger hack than nutrition. Now you're gonna have these biohackers come out there and say well, you get this machine, that machine. You can get that stuff, or you can just eat the right shit. You can just have a balanced diet, not too heavy in fats, not too heavy in sugar, not too heavy in protein. Just a nice balanced diet full of whole foods. That's how you're going to protect yourself from this, because there really is no other way. And so, kind of going back to this Verizon page, I mean, it's just it's almost like they're admitting they know. It's like that thing where, and we've all been there, where where you fuck up, right? Maybe you're at work and you were maybe it's like your relationship. Great example, Miss A-hole asks me to pick her up something at the store, and I don't pick that thing up. I just come home, and then I realize, shit, I didn't pick it up. So I come back home, and she's like, did you get me those lemons I asked you to get? And instead of going, no, I didn't get those lemons, I go, you don't need lemons, actually. Actually, your life's going to be a lot better without lemons. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prove to you how much better your life is without lemons. I know that's not a great analogy, but I don't think we have to stretch so far to realize what Verizon is actually doing. They're actually, trying to get ahead of this thing and prove to you that 5G is good directly in relation to the thing that you're most afraid of 5G for, which is cancer. So I want to talk about one last topic here, and I think this topic is very interesting. And it's not so timely, but it is kind of a thing that I just randomly saw somebody post an article about, about women having babies after the age of 35, and this was in some blog called theheartysoul.com, and basically what they're saying is that you're allowed to have a baby after the age of 35, and they basically what they're saying is that when you look around, there's more and more of these older women. I believe the technical term is women of advanced gestational age, or something like that. And is that right? But they're saying that more and more women now are having babies later, which is. I mean, I don't know that data specifically, but I can go with that. A lot more women who are focused on their careers. A lot more women, focused on, I guess, breaking, family traditions, being a little bit more independent and not so quick to have babies. A lot more women on Tinder, just kind of want to date and fuck around, and there's nothing wrong with that. So they're not settling down to have babies and families. So what might have been even 20, 30 years ago, the average age of a woman having a baby being, 23, 24, might be closer to 30 nowadays, 27, 28. And of course, we've all heard, this idea of the biological clock. Women only have a certain amount of time before they can have a baby. And, the research I've done into women's health is, of course that's true. You don't have an unlimited supply of eggs, and as you get older, your aldosterone, your progesterone, it all works differently. Your estrogen works differently. You start getting more testosterone in the body, especially if your diet is crap, which a lot of women's diets are. That can really jeopardize your menstrual cycle. A lot of women out there are struggling with their menstrual cycle. As they get older, the menstrual cycle slows down or just completely goes away. And a lot of this can actually be tied to nutrition, can be tied to lack of nutrition, can be tied to something like the vegan diet. Not to come down on the vegan diet, but this is a consequence of the vegan low-fat diet. You compensate the fat for carbs, you compensate fat for more sugar. This drives your body's wiring haywire. This drives your body's adrenal glands and liver function haywire. Start dealing with things like estrogen dominance, and it just completely, dysregulates the copper and iron status. A lot of women start dealing with this thing called PCOS, which is higher levels of testosterone. Have you ever seen a girl with a little mustache action? Could be a red flag for or a smoking gun for PCOS. Could a lot of women again missing their periods because of this, and a lot of women rehab themselves on this autoimmune paleo diet, which is low carb, higher fat. And now I'm not saying indisputably that a high fat, low carb diet is the best way to get a woman's menstrual cycle back. But, a lot of this natural health people who see success helping women get a regular menstrual cycle back do have more luck with a high fat, low carb diet. This all being said, I think this plays into the idea that women have to get pregnant earlier because as you get older, there's more and more opportunity for this all to get thrown out of whack, right? There's more and more opportunity for longer exposure to bad dieting, more and more exposure to harmful chemicals. I've heard this thing about men's fertility. Men's fertility also goes down. And this is another thing that is actually kind of kept out of the studies. I didn't think about this before the podcast, but it's hitting me now. In all of these studies showing about a woman being of advanced age, having babies, they never talk about the man, right? And remember, there's two parts to make a baby. There's a penis and a vagina. There's the sperm and the egg. The egg in the vagina, is doing a lot of heavy lifting, but none of that heavy lifting would be there if it's not for the penis and the sperm. And if you're getting dosed with a sperm coming from a man's balls who smokes, who's exposed to more, industrial compounds, who has a crap diet, eats, pizza and donuts and drinks just energy drinks and soda and tons of beer. That's not a good ingredient to put into your egg. You know what I mean? If you're making eggs to eat, you're not gonna fucking put motor oil in there. You know what I mean? You're not gonna pull sludge from behind your refrigerator and mix it in with your eggs. No, you're going to put maybe some high quality salt, maybe some greens, maybe some good, high quality feta cheese or something. You're going to put some ingredients in those eggs to make an omelet that tastes good. You're not going to put, you're not going to put mold you find behind your toilet as an ingredient into your eggs. And unfortunately, a lot of women are getting impregnated by dudes whose sperm is the equivalent of, mold found on the bottom of a toilet plunger. So when it comes to like the quote unquote science and a lot of these studies that show complications with advanced maternal age, I mean, there's so many compounding factors that it is hard. And I think they're doing to take those studies at face value and say, see, women of advanced age shows they're not as successful as having babies as women who are younger. And they're only going with the age. They're not taking in all these other factors. Now, I haven't looked at all the data on this. I've just looked at several studies. One study was a huge meta-analysis which showed that women of advanced age, have more complications. But we're not talking about like a definitive number. We're talking about just like 1 to 5% more complications. And in complications, we're talking about things like gestational diabetes, increased blood pressure, just more kind of like health problems for the women, which I'm not trivializing that at all. But I did look at this one study, and I will link to this in my show notes. But I did find this study that does show that women over the age, they broke it up between women who were younger than 35 having babies, women who were older than 35, and then women who were like way advanced age, over 40. And I mean, yes, it showed that women had higher rates of gestational diabetes, hypertension, but it actually showed that the health of the baby was actually about the same in all of those groups. So the birth weight, the ABCAR score, which is the appearance, pulse, grimace response, activity, and respiration. This is the score they give the baby with after its first minute being born, and then after 5 minutes, and I think after 10 minutes. So they're just, it's a score that rates, what's the health the overall health of the baby that's just newly born. And in women of all these different groups, under 35, over 35, and over 40, those numbers were basically the same. So the risk is really more on the mother. And again, when it comes to something like gestational diabetes, there are a lot of factors. There are a lot of factors that go into that, specifically diet, right? I mean, what's the biggest smoking gun for regular diabetes? Diet. A lot of women get pregnant, and now it's the green light to just eat whatever you want. And I get it. I've never been pregnant. This is not me mansplaining anything. I couldn't even, begin to fathom what that feeling of different cravings must be like to a pregnant woman, because your hormones are crazy. And I've heard a lot of these naturopath, nutritional people talk about, how to balance hormones while you're pregnant. I'm not even close to being qualified to teach women how to do that. But there are methods, it probably comes down to a lot of, trying your best to cut out processed foods and sugar like any standard diet. Avoid the stuff that will give you diabetes in the first place. I'm sure, maybe you have intense cravings for Cheetos and ice cream when you're pregnant. Well, you probably shouldn't eat that stuff when you're pregnant, especially if there's a thing growing inside you, that's leaching off of the nutrition you've taken in the first place. So if you just get pregnant and you just use that as a green light to to just eat all the stuff that you don't eat when you're not pregnant, I mean, don't be surprised if you get diabetes when you're pregnant. I see it in dudes whose girls get pregnant, right? The dudes also gain like 10 pounds of pregnancy weight. I'm just trying to keep up with her. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, man, like you should be leading the charge. You should be feeding her well with good, nutritious stuff. You shouldn't be, going to McDonald's and when she downs, three Big Macs, you shouldn't also down 3 Big Macs. In fact, you should be like, hey, instead of going to McDonald's, why don't we go get some good grass-fed burger meat and make our own burgers here? Top it off with some, good whole raw dairy cheese. There's so many ways to do this. And again, these studies, they don't take that stuff. They don't take that stuff into account. They just say, well, look, the age of these women, it's higher, they have more complications, so boom, try not to have a kid, past the 35. So now you get these women like going crazy, like, oh my God, I'm 32, I haven't had a baby yet, is it gonna happen? Oh my God, I haven't had a baby yet, oh my God, I'm gonna have a baby, I'm gonna get gestational diabetes, I'm gonna get so sick, I'm gonna die, blah. You're gonna be fine, man. Halle Berry had her first child at 41 and her second at 47. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, is pregnant at 37. Carrie Underwood's announced a pregnancy at 35. I did not know she was that old. So if they can do it, you can do it. It's totally possible. But again, I'll link to this article in the show notes of this and the study that I found here, and you can read it and make your own decisions. Again, this isn't me advocating for women to just wait and have babies when they're older. Of course, your body is way more prepared to have a baby when you're younger. Especially if you don't take very good care of yourself. But if you're a female, you got regular periods, all of your vital health signs say you're good. If you have a good fasting blood glucose, HbA1c, if you've got good blood pressure, if your C-reactive protein is down, if you have just general low inflammation, and you're 36, 37, I know plenty of 36, 37, 38-year-olds that's health is absolutely amazing, could probably bang out a baby. So do your own research, ladies. And one last thing to kind of piggyback off of that I want to mention here is I was listening to another podcast, and I've heard this several times. It was just kind of not so related to this, but related to it. They were talking about climate change and global warming and population control. And the researcher, and I forget, there's another guy who wrote a very famous book about how to combat climate change, and he's talking about like wind turbines and hydro dams and redoing the power grid and all this stuff. But the guy in the podcast I heard and the guy in this book, one of their biggest ways they both agree on how to combat climate change through population control is not to kill off the population, because they're like, there's just too many humans here. But one of the biggest ways is to educate women. Better education of women correlates to lower birth rates, not in a bad way, but like in a good way. Like, not so many people are being born. Like, you go to some of these, kind of rundown towns around North America, like in West Virginia, even places in like New York or Massachusetts or in Arizona, and there's people having 5-6 babies, and they're all on welfare. And like, these are people who it's always the people who should not be having babies that are having the most babies. It's funny too, because like we're talking about women who are older having babies. These women happen to just, coincidentally be better educated. And they're saying like, well, one of the ways that we control the population is to better educate women. And look, you guys know I'm not a feminist by any means. I'm not here to defend women, to talk down to women, but I am going to defend women in this one, because as much as I do think that's important, yes, we should absolutely be educating women. Women should have access to great education, but so should men. Why are we giving men the pass in this? As a dude, I can tell you straight up, the reason I don't have a baby is purely on me, because I've had, some of you might doubt this, but I've had sex before. I've had sex with a few different women, and none of them have gotten pregnant, I don't think. There might have been one, but, thank God for Planned Parenthood at that time. That's neither here nor there. But none of them gotten pregnant. You know why? Because I was smart enough to use protection on my end. Like, let that sink in for a second. The man, a lot of times, has control in that situation. For a guy, condoms suck. Protection condoms, they suck. I don't think a woman will ever understand, and I don't think they're great for women. And I don't think they're great for for anybody. We're talking about latex, we're talking about plastic, we're talking about chemicals, going inside your body and being put on, one of the most important organs on my body. I can't feel anything, like sex is the greatest thing in the world. It's like the thing we're here to do is to have sex and procreate, and whatever it is, evolution or God has made it so it's the greatest thing ever. But at the same time, it's also the most dangerous thing ever, because you can just carte blanche create another person that you have to take care of. And sometimes, a lot of times, I'd say probably close to most of the times, it's not because the woman was stupid and got pregnant. It's because the guy is a fucking dingbat and doesn't put a condom on and doesn't take the extra precautionary principle of making sure that when he, blows the load, that load is not in the vagina, and that there's a barrier between said load and the fallopian tubage. Get it out of there. For a long time, man, if I'm having sex, I was wearing a condom and pulling out and running to another room. There was no chance I was going to get pregnant, or I was going to let a girl get pregnant, because I knew I have a lot of stuff to do, and I did not want to deal with a baby. Now, people will debate the ability to have a baby and have a successful career. I'm not here to debate that. It's not even part of the point. But the main part of the point was, I decided as a man that I didn't want to have a baby, and I knew that I had full control to make sure that didn't happen, because I was educated on what can happen with a baby. There's a lot of dummy dudes. There's a lot of idiot dudes out there who don't want to wear the condom. And yes, it feels incredible to blow the load, right? It feels incredible to let that river of you flow out of you while you're inside your partner. It feels great. It feels like this is what nature intended us to do. But it could also be the most life-changing event that you could ever experience. And this doesn't come down to a woman's education. This is a man's education. You see these dudes. I see dudes all the time walking around with their girls with strollers. They're definitely younger than 30 years old, and they definitely don't look like they're ready nor have the financial means to deal with that responsibility. So if you're a dude and you're like, yeah, girls, you need to get educated. We need to control the population with women's education. No, we have to make sure dudes know that you need to take the extra step if you're going to get laid and go to the store and just buy condoms. There literally could be nothing easier than this, right? Let's not, like, I'm not for women being on the pill because I don't want your hormones getting fucked up. But even if you are, good for you. Thanks for doing that. Guys, take some responsibility. Just go buy condoms. There is no controversy about this. It's really the biggest no-brainer there is. And even in the condom, pull out. Pull out, dude. Don't finish because you're too lazy inside the girl. Get it out of there. Why are we not educating guys on this? If they just, I think, like even in 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade, I know it's brutal, I know it's gross, and people will maybe consider this like, like child exploitation or porn. It's not, no. It's educating a kid, and they do some of this like human sexuality stuff, but I think all you have to do to make an impression on a young child's mind, on a young like boy, is say, listen, write down all the stuff you want to do in your life. What do you want to do? When you're in 6th grade, that list is unbelievable, right? It's like, I'm going to be a professional football player. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to be a rap star. I'm going to go to space. I'm going to run a cell phone company, you know? Write all that stuff down that you want to do. And then take that as a teacher and go, well, if you jizz inside your girlfriend, if you don't pull out, none of that shit's going to happen. The odds are very, very, very against that happening if you don't wear a condom. Very simple. Little Timmy, you want to play in the NBA? You want to be a professional basketball player? Well, you know what you can't do if you got a baby? You can't go out to the courts and play basketball. Hey, little Bobby, you want to go to outer space? You want to be a spaceman? Well, guess what you can't do if you got a baby? You got no time to study astrophysics. You know why? Because you got to watch a little human and make sure it doesn't die. You got to go buy it diapers. You got to hold it. You got to raise it to another human being. And unfortunately, it's very hard to understand, quantum mechanics and aerospace engineering science when you're getting spit up on and shitted on by a little baby. It's a very simple equation. So educate the men. That's all I'm saying. Thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. This is for the classic a-holes out there. I know it kind of feels like we're changing course a little bit here with the format, but I like this new format of doing several topics in one episode. I used to just do one and just rant about it forever, but nowadays I'm kind of taking that out. And what we're doing now is I'm doing these podcasts where I'm going to talk about several different topics, but then I'm going to go real long form in YouTube videos. So make sure you go on a YouTube, Holistic A-Hole YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, and that way you'll see me go long form with all of these topics, and I'll cite the studies. You get the papers there. And then, of course, I've got all the other stuff on the channel. So if you haven't done this yet, go on to the Holistic A-Hole YouTube page, subscribe to that. Find me on Instagram. Post this playing in your podcast player on your phone to your Instagram story. Tag me at Holistic A-Hole. And you know what's huge? You know what's so huge that you can do as an a-hole? Go on to iTunes, leave a 5-star review, and I would certainly appreciate that. I hope you guys enjoy these podcasts. I hope you enjoy listening. I hope you have a great day, and come visit me in Puerto Rico sometime. Otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.